Warning: this story may loosen your grip on reality. It might have you checking under the couch, and it'll definitely have you looking at your microwave sideways. If none of these things scare you, and you're one of those hold my beer kind of people, just keep listening. Otherwise, remember that the weirdest things in the universe are probably watching you right now. Hank's Microwave, Chapter 2, Linoleum Recon. The Morp were fucked in Hank's garbage can. It took Gydra 8 minutes to calm her flock down. Panic scorched through her veins too, especially with the sudden darkness. But panic was not an option. Her combat training kicked in. "Calm down, everyone," she said. "Calm down. Panic won't help us here. We need to work the situation, Morp." "Did you see that thing?" said Quibbly. "It was enormous." Yes, I did. It ate them." "Digby and Rumble, they're gone," said Maloon. This sent another wave of panic through the group, mixed in with the coffee grinds, the abomination that should have been Mabel's famous oyster casserole, and the other garbage in the can. "Yes, and we will mourn them when it's time," Gydra said. "Not now. We need to take inventory of our situation and adapt." She whipped her adaptive field tool AFT off her little white belt and scanned Hank's house, the planet, the solar system, the galaxy. "Yes, we are definitely in another dimension. Seems we are in a barred spiral galaxy, terrestrial planet, although mostly water. I'm also picking up lots of rock and several metals, aluminum, iron, magnesium, and others." "Yes, but where? What is this chamber that we're in?" said Quibbly. She scanned the contents of the garbage can, including Mabel's casserole. "It seems we are in a waste receptacle." "Oh, that's just great," said Grumble. "It just keeps getting better." Gydra snapped at him. "Stow it," she said. "Complaining is not going to help us any right now. Focus up, Morp. What is our first order of business here?" "We need to get back to the Ark," said Vera. "No, that is our last order of business," said Gydra. "That is our goal. We need to work the problem. What is our first order of business?" She was doing her best to get them back into their engineering frame of mind, mixed in with their combat training, brief as it was. "We need to get out of this waste receptacle," said Bravix. "Very good," said Gydra. "You're right. We need to get out of here and assess the situation." "Oh, you mean that there's a Morp-eating giant from another dimension out there?" said Grumble. "Get it together, Morp. We will deal with the giant when we get there. Right now, we need to get out of this waste receptacle." They had no idea how right she was. And they had no idea how lucky they were that it wasn't Wednesday, when Hank took out the trash. Ventrix popped his head through a mound of spaghetti noodles, startling them. "The bottom is completely sealed off," he said a bit too loud. "The inner wall is melted through, but there's another impenetrable layer." Gydra pressed a button on her AFT and pointed a laser at the top of the can. "We need to get up there," she said. "This is our way out." They all looked up in the dark, their eyes adjusting. "It's too far away," said Quibbly. "How will we ever get way up there?" "We will have to build a ladder or ramp, using the contents of this waste receptacle," said Tinker. "Very good," said Gydra. "Now we're thinking. Let's get to work." The Morp set to their work, stacking the contents of Hank's garbage with great effort, using a plastic knife as a fulcrum at times, and a rubber band as a pulley in others. Under Gydra's guidance, they stacked a broken egg carton, a soggy newspaper, a crumpled cereal box, and a Slim Jim wrapper. Given their size, the work took them hours. They were nearing the top when they froze in terror. Giant footsteps approached. Hank shuffled to the kitchen, still in his undershirt and sweats. The hangover pulsing through his dehydrated body felt like a dumpster rolling down a hill of hot sheet metal. He winced at the sunlight pouring in through his dirty windows. He burped and opened the refrigerator and pulled out a Kraft single and peeled it open and folded it into his mouth. He tossed the wrapper in the trash and turned on the coffee maker. After his bathroom routine, a lonely affair now that Mabel was gone, he got dressed in his janitor clothes and filled his thermos with coffee and left. The screen door slammed behind him. The Kraft single wrapper sent Breivik's flying. The rest of the Morp were holding the Slim Jim sleeve he clung to like some sort of trapeze artist near the top of the garbage can. But when Hank tossed in the wrapper, it hit Breivik's in the face, and he pinwheeled and fell. They all fell. Tumbling down the wads of aluminum foil, eggshells, potato chip bags, and other disgusting items, they screamed and cursed and wiggled like mad. "It's hopeless," said Grumble. "We'll never get out of here." Gydra climbed through a torn ramen noodle bag and smacked him. "That's enough of that talk," she said. "Whining about it won't do a damn thing to get us out of here. Listen, do you hear anything?" They all paused and listened. Silence, save for the refrigerator pump. "No, you don't," she said. "The giant has gone somewhere. His portal has closed. This is our chance, and we know how to build the scaffold now. Let's get to work, Morp, quickly." They set to rebuilding their trash ladder to the top of the can. A broken egg carton, a soggy newspaper, a crumpled cereal box, a Slim Jim wrapper. Intrepid, Breivik's climbed back to the top of the fragile structure and climbed to the top edge of the trash can. He clambered up and looked over. He said, "Pretty far," down to the others looking up at him. "Here," said Gydra. She threw him a long strand of linguine noodle. He tied it around his tiny waist and said something cavalier and rappelled down the outside of Hank's garbage can. His gelatin feet touched down on the linoleum tile that lined the unfortunate insides of Hank's cabinets, smeared with grease and crumbs. Careful not to break his noodly escape line to his brethren on the other side of the garbage can, he gave it a tug, signaling the okay. The others followed suit, remembering their training. Soon, the Morp had gathered in the cabinet under Hank's sink. They studied the sliver of yellow light that poured through the gap between the two cabinet doors. "There," said Gydra, "our way out." They put their backs into it, pressing on the cabinet door. But their collective mass was not enough to push it open, no matter how fiercely they wiggled. Shouting at each other, they tried lots of things: a celery stick, too slippery, and way too much elasticity; an on-upon chicken leg, too short and unwieldy. The hours drug on. A can of cooking spray offered some promise, but they couldn't get enough pressure on the nozzle. With his adaptive field instrument, AFT, Tinker scanned the text on the cooking spray bottle, though, and set it to work on decoding the language. "Over here," said Tinker. He'd found Hank's fire extinguisher, strapped poorly to the wall. "If we can unseat this strap, this thing will fall in that direction and open the portal." "Give it a try," said Gydra. So they set to work on the fire extinguisher strap. Wiggling and straining, they yanked on the strap end and pulled the notch free, and thwack! The red fire extinguisher popped out and fell on the cabinet door with a tubular crash and bounced a few bell times and finally settled. The Morp looked up. The cabinet door lay pushed open in the fire extinguisher, their bridge to freedom. "Go," said Gydra. They all scrambled across the fire extinguisher, their gelatinous appendages akimbo, and they clambered down the nozzle to Hank's linoleum kitchen floor. They had no idea how lucky they were that Mabel's beloved Duchess no longer prowled that kitchen. A Russian blue, she would have toyed with their heads in her own adorable way. They all had their AFTs out, scanning the vast linoleum kitchen floor, pink and blue squares to the horizon's edge. All of them except Grumble. He just looked down at his feet, barely holding it together in this new dimension. They let him be. "Look," said Ventrix, "up there, our point of entry." High above them, on the kitchen counter, Hank's microwave stared back at them, its face devoid of all fucks given. "Yes," said Gydra. "Remember, gang, this is how we got here. Mark that on your AFTs." The Morp dutifully fiddled with their AFTs, small, pistol-like devices that looked like they were made of candy. They punched in the GPS pin and moved on to the dining room. Tinker's language decoder had finished. "Stand by for language patch 1, he said. He jiggered with his AFT and sent a pulse to the other Morp. The English language decoded glowed on their devices for a moment, as if touched by an ember, and they wrapped their hands around it, absorbing the ember into their gelatinous skin where it pulsed and flowed up their arms and into their heads. "Well done," said Gydra. "Language acquisition." "Thank you, ma'am. Just patch 1. Stand by for more." They continued their scouting sortie across the oriental carpet in Hank's dining room. The team was starting to click. Ventrix was on point. "There." Ravix pointed toward Hank's small bookshelves. "More text." "Yes," said Tinker. He broke off from the group. Gydra sent Quibbly with him, for added protection and to get Quibbly and his questions away from her for a bit. They continued on, toward the grandfather clock. "Look," said Vera as they drew near. "They measured time." "Yes," said Gydra. "Maybe there is some hope. Take warmth, and that time exists here too." Vera smiled at the thought. She was greatly comforted by the leadership that Gydra was putting on display, mostly on autopilot and from her training, but there nonetheless. Our intrepid Morp spent the rest of the afternoon scanning and learning everything that they could. They scanned Hank's books, his fishing magazines, his Chinese food menus, his computer. They scanned his old Milwaukees and his TV guide. They scanned the sports section of the local Gazette, which lay strewn all about the place. They scanned the greeting cards sent months ago, condolences for Mabel. "So sorry for your loss," said most of them. "If you need anything," said the others. Vera found one of those photo booth strips of Hank and Mabel. Goofy faces. In the late afternoon, when the shadows grew long through the blinds and the sunlight melted to a pleasant orange glow, they heard the screen door slam and scrambled like mad to hide under Hank's plaid couch. The giant footsteps approached suddenly and clogged across the kitchen floor in enormous strides, approaching at a surreal speed. Maloon nearly didn't make it. She dropped down and rolled under the couch just in time and hid there, quivering. Meanwhile, the giant belched and cracked open a beer and flopped on the couch to watch some wrestling. For the next few hours, they hid there, under Hank's couch. They set up a little camp. Grumble found a few half-smashed M&Ms and dragged them over, a perfect food source, pure sugar. They even found a fossilized Cheeto to use as a couchback. Gydra asked Bravix to carefully sneak out to a standing lamp in the front corner of the room. It was tall and provided a good vantage point to film Hank with his AFT. Dark purple and hard to see, Bravix was perfect for the job. He snuck out there like a ninja from space and gave them a wide angle, looking down on the giant. Hank sat there, pale-faced and drinking beer, mesmerized by the TV. He looked trapped, alone on the couch with his sad bachelor dinner. In the food department, he used to live high on the hog. Meatloaf, roasted chicken, lasagna. Now it was frozen trays and fast food and greasy paper wrappers. One of Mabel's favorite commercials came on the TV. A goofy mutual fund commercial with a happy couple on a beach. Hank broke down in tears. He threw a beer can at the TV and shuffled to the kitchen. Ventrix looked at them and said, "Wait here." He sprinted out from the safety of the couch. They gasped, watching him. He scrambled to the bookcase in the dining room and along the wall and to a cabinet that overlooked the kitchen. He crept to the edge, and there he could watch Hank operate the portal back to the luminous arc. He got an angle with his AFT and recorded it for the others. Hank yanked the frozen tray of macaroni and cheese out of the freezer and stabbed his taut plastic lid with a fork. He popped it in the microwave and tapped in the time and pressed start. Each button press, a mechanical beep. The Morp counted the beeps, as if attempting to decipher the enigma. "It's a code," said Tinker. "No," said Vera. It's a timer. He pressed time. How much time? Asked Quibley. 6 minutes, said Vetrix. Yes, but the input tray was not the same as the one we landed in, said Maloon. We have to get it right, and there are lots of other buttons on that interface. There could be other settings. She's right, said Gydra. We need Hank. Only he knows the recipe to get us home. But he seems quite volatile right now, especially on his inebriants. I agree, said Maloon. He seems very sad and quite intoxicated. First contact could be dangerous, said Gydra. We need a good plan. How can we communicate with him? They whispered to one another, working the problem. Direct, face-to-face contact was out of the question, far too dangerous. Written notes were too creepy and easy to dismiss. His mobile communications device was an excellent option, but the encryption was proving quite resistant. Tinker kept working on it. What about the telecast device he watches incessantly? Asked Quibley. That's a good question, said Tinker. He directed his AFT scanner at Hank's TV and ran some special diagnostics. That I can work with, he said. Explain, said Gydra. She looked weary. Her gelatinous whiskers sagged. I can get into the telecast device with the AFT. Then what, said Gydra. Communicate through it? Yes, said Tinker. We could broadcast through it. Could the AI tell stories to communicate the right ideas? Asked Vera. Yes, said Gydra. As a matter of fact, we could model those warriors he admires so much. The wrestlers, said Maloon. Yes, said Gydra. Tinker, that is genius. I know, said Tinker, laughing. For the rest of the night, they watched wrestling with Hank and brainstormed parables they could broadcast to earn his trust and gain his assistance, a storyline that would ease his suffering mind into first contact with a miniature alien species. Hank could have sworn he heard voices, little ones. He figured they were from some weird beer dream he had when he dozed off again with the TV on. It was 2 a.m. He groaned. He hated when he did that and swore he'd get to bed at 10 p.m. Not a minute longer. No fucking way. Never worked out that way. Cursing himself, he hauled his ass off the couch and went to bed. About 10 minutes later, his snore ramped up to full chainsaw. The Morp got to work.